The Cessna 172 may be the most produced airplane in the world, but it's really not easy to find a 172 like this one. This has 14 very desired features that most owners would really like to have. First of all, it's a 172M model. That is the most desired early model 172. It's a more refined airplane with the E2D engine, and it's got the camber lift wing design. Now, this particular plane has actually been in the Midwest its entire life, in between North Dakota and Minnesota. Those Midwest airplanes usually don't have a lot of corrosion, or any at all, and the paint issues that you'd likely find in some other areas don't exist here. It's been hangared, well kept, and well maintained. I even got to speak to the mechanic who's been doing the recent annuals and maintenance. He's a very thorough, detail-oriented person. It's got all logs since new, a current annual that was completed in March of this year. It is IFR certified and current. This plane actually has low hours. It's only about 3,730 on the airframe total time. Now, it's never been registered to a flight school. It's only had private owners. And actually, the previous owner, he had it for about 18 years. You can see the newer paint is in beautiful condition. It's also got some upgrades like LED lights, a clean airframe, no hail or other damages. The interior, you'll find out later, has a newer upgrades, including leather seats and new carpets. The avionics panel is updated Garmin. It's got some digital radios in there, a digital transponder, JPI engine analyzer, and then also a Garmin Moving Maps GPS. It's got the ADS-B out installed, so you could easily fly it into any airport, any airspace, no restrictions. The engine, it's got the Lycoming 0320 E2D that everybody loves. That's one of the most desired engines, and actually one of the best four-cylinder engines that were ever made, with good compressions. And, of course, most importantly of all, the plane starts right up and it flies beautiful. You've got a nice flight portion. Take a look at that. You'll really be pleased with it. And I want to say that the reason I mentioned it's hard to find a plane like this is really because only a few of the 172s out there have all of these points combined together in a single package like this one does. So I was talking about that beautiful exterior on this plane. You know, I find it important to have a nice looking plane to fly when I'm taking friends, family up, going different places. It's just a point of pride. And actually this plane, you can see how clean the paint is. It's because it was actually stripped and fully repainted professionally with the Sherwin-Williams, the Jet Glow. So you can tell that it's going to last a long time. That's a durable, high-quality paint, and it's the most expensive way to paint a plane, that full strip and repaint. Overall, there's really clean. There are obviously a few chips here and there throughout. Pretty standard for the age of it, but there's no hail damage, any corrosion, anything like that. So I mentioned earlier about the camber lift wing being one of the main key components about this 172M, and there's a few reasons that this wing design is important. One is its stall characteristics. So you actually have a really slow stall speed. It's only about 42 knots. And even if you could try really hard to get it into that stall, these have a natural tendency and ability to be able to break out of a stall or even a spin just by letting go of the controls and neutralizing everything. When we go to purchase a plane, one of the first things we do, we always check multiple panels. We're looking for any type of corrosion or anything like that. We did that on this plane, and I want to show you just one of the panels just to get an indication of how clean it is inside of here. If you take a look up in here, you'll see that there is just no corrosion anywhere. It's very clean, and that is one of the benefits of buying a Midwest-owned plane. They're usually very clean inside like this, much more so than you can find just about anywhere else. And also when we're looking inside of these components, we're also checking the lubrication of the pulleys and the cables to see how well it's been maintained. And this one is well lubricated, means that it's been checked out on the annual and a proper inspection maintenance been done as well. So you can see we've got the LED upgraded light here for the landing light, and this is important for a few reasons. One is it doesn't take very much current, so you can actually put it on any time. They're really long lasting, so you can keep it on for long periods of time without worrying about the bulbs dying out. And so I like to use them even in daylight conditions on some busier airstrips. When you're doing your approach, other airplanes can see you a lot easier when you've got your light turned on. So those are really beneficial to have that LED upgrade. Another nice feature of this one is that it does have the steps for being able to check the fuel if you don't have a ladder. One thing that you can also add on here is a little grab bar, and I find that when it has that, it makes it a little bit easier to climb up, but this is definitely a benefit when you don't have a ladder around. There's one point here I do want to point out. We've got a little bit of a star chip in the windshield. I've talked to the mechanic, said that that is nothing to worry about. It's completely out of the line of sight. Just wanted to point that out to you. I was talking about maintenance condition and things like that. So take a look in here. You've got a sticker showing the type of oil that they've been using in it. That just shows the level of detail that the owner and the mechanic have gone to over the years to keep this plane in tip-top shape. You never have to question what type of oil you're supposed to be putting into it. Now onto the engine of this Cessna 172M. It is the Lycoming 0320 E2D 150 horsepower, one of the best Lycoming engines that they ever put out there. Take a look at just how clean this is. You can see that it has been well maintained. The hoses, the cables, the connections are all very clean. There's no oil drips or leaks anywhere. It's got the original Lycoming cylinders on it. All of the shrouds have been done up at one point. It's got very good compressions at the last annual. They were 74, 75, 76, and 70. So good compression still on it. Right now it's got about 1,600 hours on the engine. And I will say that yes, TBO is 2,000 on these, but that is just a number. I am flying a plane that has a Lycoming 4-cylinder with almost 3,000 hours on it. That's over 900 above the TBO, and it still runs beautifully. I fly it at night, cross country, it doesn't matter. And a lot of flight schools will even fly these with 3,000 or 3,500 hours on them before they do overhaul. So again, you're looking at the compressions, you're checking out oil, and one of the really nice things about this one is that it does have the oil filter adapter installed on it so that you can have better filtration for your oil, and then you're also able to take that off during oil changes, cut it open, and really inspect it carefully for any particles in there. If you take a look at kind of the rest of these connections and such like that, we've got all these yellow wires, and these are the probes for the JPI. So that engine monitor, that digital engine monitor, follows all 4 cylinders for the cylinder head temps and the exhaust gas temps, and that is important when you're monitoring, especially for leaning out in flight. And we are going to be putting in an 830 upgrade, so if you wanted to, a few extra probes, you could easily get your RPMs on there and all kinds of other information, outside air temp, your percentage of horsepower, everything like that, just by adding a few extra probes to that system. One of the other things you can see is here we've got the connection for the plug-in. This is for the engine heating system, and these engine heaters are super important. It's been in the upper Midwest its entire life, and cold starts are detrimental to engines. So when you have this system bumped up, what you can do is you actually are able to plug that in, start it up without worrying about anything cold start, anything like that. And there are some companies, when they do overhauls, they will warranty an engine all the way to TBO if you have an engine heating system installed in it, because that is how important those are to these engines. And finally, take a look over here. You can see just how clean the firewall is. We're talking again, there's no corrosion anywhere on it. That shows that history of it being well maintained. You don't have any wrinkles, anything like that. So a very clean condition on the firewall as well. So let's take a look at the gorgeous interior of this 172. It has been fully redone. You can see the leather that they've done on the upholstery. It has the same kind of bottom edge as you do on the carpets. When you go here, they've got multiple pockets with the elastic in it to help hold everything in place. These carpets are actually removable for these 2 pieces, so you can clean them separate for where your feet rests are. And it's got the stitching around them to make them look much more clean cut. And then obviously the seats. These seats have been custom designed. They've got the Cessna logo stitched into them on all 4 seats. The seats are very plush. You've got a nice high one here up front, and then on the pilot side, we've got all the articulation options, so you can adjust the back to go back and forward, and you can also adjust the height quite a bit. So there's really nice options and features on that. And if I slide this forward so you can take a look at the back seats at the same time, one thing I do want to mention on the front quick is it has these safety slots. These are actually an upgrade that you put in there to make sure that your seat doesn't actually fall all the way backward on takeoff, and both the pilot and co-pilot option have those installed, which is nice. Again, those pouches and pockets on both of the back seats, nice elastic on there to help hold everything in place. And then the rear seats, you take a look at these, again that same embroidery with the Cessna logo on it, headrests installed, and actually a 3-point harness system for these as well as the front one. So usually you get the front two, but this one also has the 3 points, so extra safety, and it is a 4-place intercom system, so you have mic and headphone inputs for all 4 places. And then you can see that they have it set up here so that they're individual seats instead of a bench, which is much more comfortable for the back seats to be in. We've got a little lever here, and that lever allows the back seat to fold forward for stacking stuff, or to lean backward if your passengers want to take a nap and recline while you're in flight. So really nice features on this. I'm going to take a look at some of the other areas of it. If you take a look at the plastics throughout, they've all been cleaned up. They're all in really nice shape. The headliner is really nice and clean overall. I didn't notice really any spots where there's cracks or damage to any of the plastics, except for maybe just right here on the headliner, but other than that, actually really clean. Now, I do have the sunshades up here so that we can see the interior a little bit better, so kind of ignore those. But we've got the rosin sun visors up here, and these are multiple articulating, so you can slide them over here if you've got the sun coming from one side or the other, and then you've got a little knob that you can adjust on here, which allows you to extend it out. So if you needed to, you can extend it over to the center part or anything like that, and that's on both sides. So some really nice features to those rosin sun visors as well. So the baggage compartment has another one of those extra upgrades that you don't find on all of the Cessna 172s. You can see that the carpet has gone all the way through to the back, clean on the panels and everything, all the plastics, but this area here is actually an extension. Not all of them are like that, they just stay flat up to this point, but this one goes all the way back into the tail cone, so if you've got longer stuff that you need to take along with you, you can easily stick it back here and store it inside. So about the panel on the 172M. If we take a look, we've got our standard 6-pack layout here. We do have a VOR indicator with the glide slope that's attached to this top comm, the KX155. We show in flight that this one is actually connected to the Garmin GNC 300XL, so it tells you if you're on your GPS heading. We do have the JPI engine monitor. We are going to be installing an 830 upgrade on here, so it's the full color option, and then it's got the option for you to add additional probes in the future if you wanted to include stuff like the RPM gauge on here. If you put in the outside air temperature, you can actually get a percentage horsepower, all kinds of different options you can add to that once it's upgraded. So if we take a look at our center stack here, first off, we have a Garmin GMA 340 audio panel that's been upgraded on here. Switch between the different comm frequencies, the different navs, and then your microphone and everything. We do have a KX155 digital nav comm, so you can dial in multiple nav and comm frequencies and flip-flop between them really simple. This nav is hooked up to your CDI and your VOR with your glide slope indicator. We've got a Garmin GNC 300XL. Now this isn't the fanciest this isn't the fanciest GPS out there, but it is everything that you need. It'll show you the distance to your waypoint, it shows you the direction, shows you your ground speed, it also shows you which heading you're supposed to be running, and you can put in waypoints on here as well as destination airports. And then once you have this turned on, this needle will show you if you're following your track properly. And of course down here we have an updated digital Garmin GTX 325 transponder. So then that's easy to plug in the numbers instead of the older turnstile ones. You just pop them in really quick when you're updating your squawk code. And then you've got a bunch of empty space here. So one of the things is having a GPS already installed. If you wanted to put, say, like a Garmin 430 or 530 in here, and we actually have one of each of those in stock. So for a discounted price, you wanted to install one, you've got the panel space to do it, and since there's already a GPS in here, the labor rate is a little bit less as well. So talk to us about that if it's something of interest to you. We've got our standard center stuff here, the carb heat, throttle, your mixture, your electronic flaps, and these are 40-degree flaps, so you've got full flap settings. Your heat and your air, you've also got an alternate static air source, and then of course down the middle we've got your trim setting, an auxiliary mic. You do have push to talk on the pilot side, and then you can use this if you're in the co-pilot side and want to help out. And then our fuel selector for the left, right, both, and off options on there. And then I'm just kind of rounding out, we've got your fuel gauges, oil pressure, oil temp, amp gauge, hour meter, and then nice easy to spot jacks for the co-pilot, as well as your little cubby with all of the books in it and instruction manuals as well. Let's go ahead and we'll get it set up for starting. So we want to make sure that our fuel is on both selector. We're going to make sure that our trim is set here for takeoff. We'll go ahead and we'll push the mixture in. We want our throttle cracked just a little bit. It's a pretty warm day out, but it hasn't been started for a couple of days, so we'll go ahead and we'll give it about 1.5 shots of primer here. And then make sure that that's turned and locked. We'll get our master turned on. And then we'll go ahead and get it started. So you can see we did the run-up, and we've got good drops on the mags, check the carb heat, and then having the JPI right there next to it, you can see that the CHTs and the EGTs, all those numbers are in a good range. You can see some dust particles on the outside of the gauges, just on the outside. Just didn't have a chance to fully detail the plane before the flight video. But our oil pressure is good, and we've got good positive on the amp gauge, so looks like suction gauge, everything looks good and ready to go. So after our initial takeoff, we're going to continue our climb all the way up to 10,000 feet. Now this type of climb is going to be a good way to test the performance of the plane. To start out with, we've got our climb set to about 600 to 700 feet per minute, and then we'll be adjusting it down to a cruise climb where we're going to keep a constant 500 foot a minute climb. One of the other things we're doing while we're taking this climb is keeping an eye on the engine monitor. We've got the CHTs and the EGTs for all 4 cylinders. They're right now in a range of between 350 to 360 on the cylinder head temps and about 1450 to 1460 on the exhaust gas temps. So we've actually reached over 6,000 feet at this point, and we're still climbing at 500 feet a minute, and we've actually got an airspeed of over 100 miles per hour. Here we're climbing through 8,000 feet with everything looking good. At the higher altitudes, you can find calmer air, and it's definitely cooler in the summertime. You're also going to burn less fuel, and you'll fly faster too. So the surface ceiling of this 172 is actually 13,100 feet at full gross weight, so you can go even higher than that when your weight is lower. Here we're climbing through about 9,000 feet. And now we're actually approaching 10,000 feet, but with the density altitude today, it may be higher than even 11,000 feet. So once we level off, you can see that we've got about 2,600 RPM, and this is going to be at about 66% power. The fuel burn should be somewhere about 7.3 gallons when leaned out properly. So this current performance is consistent with the POH numbers, and all the engine parameters read normal. The true airspeed is actually at about 135 miles per hour. Now, it may be warm down on the ground, but it's actually only about 30 degrees up here at altitude. So what we're going to do, pull on the cabin heat and let it warm up a little bit, and then we also want to make sure we close those upper vents.
So we're going to do a coordinated turn. A few things you're watching on your coordinated turn is your bank angle, obviously, coordination, and then also monitoring so that we're not descending. We're going to be turning about 180 degrees to get back here.
So the Garmin GPS is your comm, and it also has some really useful information such as your distance to your destination, your track and direct track. It also has the line for you to follow when you're flying, and then it also displays the ground speed up in the top right corner.
Got the field in sight?
Yeah.